To those who are joining us locally, to those who are viewing us live, and to those who are joining us pre-recorded, welcome. This is Impact 2020. We're here to talk about what's going on in our community, what's going on in our environment, social injustice, the unrest that's going on, the police violence. And to discuss this, today we have something a little different. We have a treat. We have someone who's an educator who spent their career talking to children and youth and educating them. And so we have him here today, and we're going to discuss how they feel about, or how he feels about, what's going on. Welcome, Steve.
What's happening, Nathaniel Watkins? How's everybody?
Doing good. All right, so let's just hop right into it with the first question. First question being, you're in North Carolina.
Yes.
So tell us, what do you see when it comes to the marches? What are you seeing when it's coming to protests? What are you seeing in your neck of the woods?
Well, I have a lot of different views on it. Number one, it's something that's just going to continue to happen if we continue to have these situations in our country. People are tired. People are just fed up with the brutality and the violence that the police give to our community. And it's boiling over, basically. Mm-hmm. It's been like this since the first African arrived in Jamestown in 1619. Mm-hmm. It's just a continuous cycle of frustration in the African American community. My parents, as well as your parents, pretty much saw it firsthand. A lot worse than we see it now. But, well, you know what? Maybe not, because everything's videotaped now. So we probably see the same things that they saw and experienced. And it's just frustrating when the people go out and protest. I mean, we've been protesting for years. We've been protesting literally for decades. And for some reason, there's no systematic change. And with that not happening, the protests end up being riots. A riot is pretty much when people aren't heard. If you're not going to hear me, I'm going to slam my hand down on the table if it's just a one-on-one conversation and one person's frustrated. Mm-hmm. So the African American community is pretty much slamming their hand on the table and saying, listen and stop. Yeah. I do not condone it. I do not condone the riots, but it's inevitable if nothing changes. So that's my view on it. I really applaud everyone that has done the peaceful protest. It's necessary, and I applaud it and I support it. But at one certain time and space, the protests have to stop, and we actually have to make something happen. And I do not condone the riots, but that's one of the outcomes of the protest not working. So, it's a lot of change that has to happen, and it starts from the top.
All right, that's a good point. I want to just make sure I let people know, if anyone has a question or a comment, they can type it into the comment section, and we'll address it. So let's move right along. Let's talk real about this. Mm-hmm. How are people of a different persuasion acting around you? How are white people acting? When you see them at the store, or you see them at the mall, or I know because of the pandemic, you don't see them a lot of places, but how are they acting? Are they acting different? Are they acting funny? Are they acting the exact same? You tell me, what you see?
Well, you know what? There have been a few situations where I've been treated very kindly, like almost. It's comical to me because it's a guilty kindness. I actually, it was Juneteenth almost a month ago, a few weeks back, and I have a Juneteenth shirt. It has the African American flag, the red, the green and the black and all that. And it has a fist in the middle, and it has the date of Juneteenth. And I was rocking that shirt. I go to only go to two places during this pandemic: the grocery store and one of my frat bros' house that's been quarantined like me. And I was going to the grocery store, and this one guy said, "Oh, I love that shirt." I'm like, "Thank you." Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of my reaction. I'm like, "Huh." It wasn't one of us. So, and so I get that kind of guilt. But they're, also wearing that shirt. I got a few eye rolls and a few, meh type looks. And, regardless of the looks I receive, it's comical to me, but at the same time, it's a reaction of guilt, and it's a reaction of what you still see, which is systematic racism. But a couple of my friends, or I would say coworkers, I actually have one in particular that we talk about everything. And, she actually raised a question like, how do you feel about all this? And, she is a person that wants to understand. And, because, without giving too much information about her, she's from the South and, wasn't, around a lot of us, if you understand what I'm saying. So she wants to understand.
Yeah.
And I give her the real low down truth about what I've seen, what others have gone through, what I've gone through. And, it's people that, the bottom line is they need to be educated about it. That's it. Just be educated. And until the conversations really start, we're going to have a lot of the same situations happen. It's just going to be a continuous circle. So I don't mind having a conversation. We need to have a conversation.
Well, that's good. That's good. We've had different, I've heard different things and seen different things and experienced different things from people of different races. But kind of pivoting a little bit, as someone who's in the classroom, as someone who sees the kids, and I know that it's the summertime and you really haven't been participating with them right now because of the virus as well. But when you go back, what will you say? And if you have had any interactions with any younger people, how have they been reacting and feeling about the whole climate?
Well, yeah, and that's one thing that I'm actually being an educator. It's tough right now. We always make jokes and say, "Oh man, I can't. I'm glad I'm away from the kids. Oh, we needed this." But if you're a really hardcore educator, you really miss the interaction with the students because number one, that's just what we do. And number two, they need it. And there have been a few situations that because I work with elementary and I have worked with high school and I have worked with middle. But I've been primarily in the elementary realm. But what I always preach to them is respect everybody, regardless of what they look like, regardless of where they're from. Because we don't only have a racial issue, we have an economic issue. And, the sad part about it is a lot of, us and, African Americans, we're on both sides, which is not, which needs to be fixed. So I pretty much just tell the students all the time, respect everybody. And, me being, myself being an African American male, we're not really seen that often in the elementary realm. So we have to break it down a little further for the students. And we have to tell them what's appropriate, what's not appropriate socially. And I have to do that with all the races, all the different ethnic groups we have, because you have to start there. So I don't really bring race into it until maybe a little bit because it's such a sensitive issue with the young minds. But when they get to the around fourth and fifth grade, that's when I might bring in a little snippet of it. I actually have done a couple of social studies lessons on the slave trade, the Civil War. But what I try to do is just plant the seed of kindness for everybody. And that's what I'm going to continue to do with the little ones. But when you get to middle school and high school, you can actually break it down a lot more and tell them why certain things are happening. And they understand it more because their minds are open to it.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, we Black.
Yep.
Black male, I'm a black male. We've been around the block because we're a little bit older. So I like how you're talking about what we need to do with these younger kids. Now, when we get into these older young adults, I don't want to call them kids, the 20-year-olds, young 30-year-olds who are actually out here pushing for the change, the ones who are out on the front line. As older black men, what's our role with them? What do you think we need to be doing to encourage them? Or, you know, if you think that that's what we need to be doing, should we be joining them? What's our role?
You know, I think that's more of an individual stance. But I will say, we have to make sure when they go out to do their thing and protest, we have to make sure that we can tell them everything we can to make sure they come home. Because, you know, the riots, people get arrested, people get hurt, property's damaged. And, you know, and we're doing it to ourselves, which that's why I don't condone it. I have a really good example on, you know, trying to get the young ones to understand not to do the rioting. One of my good friends from college, she has a cousin that she's really tight with that lives in Minnesota, just brought a building for a restaurant. Like, didn't open yet. Like, he had everything set, had everything ready to have his grand opening, riots. And his whole place was destroyed. And, it's frustrating when someone works hard for something and it's ready to pop off. And then a riot just comes in like a tornado and takes it out. But, of course, thank God for insurance and, GoFundMe was raised and they were on the news and everything, and he's getting everything rebuilt. But that's the thing that I'm talking about. Like, I understand it, but we have to tell the people, like, if you want to protest, but try to do it where you don't destroy your community and the things you actually use. Like, that restaurant was forged and made by somebody in the community. Now the people that destroyed it can't enjoy it because it was for them. So it's like a kid, being upset and breaking their favorite toy. Like, oh man, I broke my Voltron. I can't play with it now.
Right.
So it's like, okay, other than doing that, let's go out and figure out, let's vote, let's register to vote. One thing that's going to really frustrate me in November is all these people rioting and protesting and don't vote.
Exactly.
Because that's the biggest tool they have. And, I'm going all over the place, Nathaniel, but the biggest voice you have is the vote. And people, they of course were displeased with 45. Like, it's like a kindergartner got the presidency. So we know that needs to change. And then people have their things about Biden, which I understand. And people say, oh, I'm not going to vote for him. I'm not going to vote at all. Well, these people don't understand. You're voting for state representatives. You're voting for state senators. You're voting for judges in your state, in your district. You're voting for district attorneys. Like, voting really matters in the state level. That's everything that really affects you. So it frustrates me. So all these people protesting, all these people rioting, they better stand in our line with their mask, and their elderberry and their green tea with lemon and ginger. Stand in line and vote. If you don't, you don't deserve to throw a brick. You don't deserve to hold a sign. You need to sit down and shut up, because the biggest tool you have is your right to vote. And people have literally died for that. People that look like us have died and are still dying and are still fighting for that right, because, a lot of people are not wanting us to do that. So they're doing everything in their power to stop us from doing it. And they're not scared of the guys wearing pants below their behind, and they're not scared of the guys with the tattoos. They're scared of the guys that go to vote.
Exactly.
So, that's just my take on it. It's frustrating, but if we educate and we talk about it like we are now, maybe people can change their mindset and we can move forward the right way.
Yeah. Let's pivot a little bit. Again, I keep saying pivot because that's what we keep doing.
Yeah.
Let's move to now here. We've had a lot of change. Monuments have gone down. Confederate monuments have gone down. In Mississippi, they took the sign, the Confederate flag, off of the flag. A lot of symbolic change that's been going around. I'll even say, I know that you have a relative that lives in a place called Confederate Hills, and they're changing the name of that. So it hits home, you know, for basically most people who live in the South. How do you feel about it in a personal sense, like, you know? But then also, is that important? Is it bringing value to the movement, or is it just some symbolic thing that really doesn't mean a whole lot?
It can be both, if you know, depending on the eyes. You know, as a kid, going down Monument Avenue at home in Richmond, Virginia. As a kid, you look at those monuments and you don't know the history of it.
Yeah.
You're 6 years old, 5, 6 years old, looking at these big statues. You're like, oh, that's cool. But once you learn about why they're there, you have this anger that festers and you have this frustration. Of course, Richmond was the capital of the Confederacy. And I actually saw this video of this attorney. I'll send you the link. He pretty much showed and talked about and broke down why all of these monuments were built. And people don't understand, these monuments weren't built right after the Civil War. They were built in the early 1900s, the 50s, the 60s. Our parents were born and alive when a lot of these monuments were erected. And it's pretty much, you know, some of it was a slap in the face of integration of the schools. A lot of it was just other people not wanting the integration of the country and the rights that African Americans were gaining. But I appreciate them coming down, and they should come down. They should have never been up, but we're America. We were built on stuff like that. Yeah. They should come down, but nothing's going to change if policies don't change. So sometimes, you know, the city of Richmond or in Mississippi, they can bring down the Confederate flag. They can bring down the Lee Monument. They can bring down the Stonewall Jackson. They can shoot a couple of bazookas in Stone Mountain, Georgia to knock that out. But if we don't change the systematic racism in government, in minds and in hearts, we just took down some statues and that's it.
Right.
And it has to start in the capitals of each state, has to start in Washington. It has to start there, and it has to start in the hearts and minds of every American. If it doesn't start there in the hearts and minds and in the law books, it's like taking a picture off the wall. You still got the picture, you know what the picture stands for. You just took it off the wall and you're moving it somewhere else. So it means nothing if we don't change.
Now, how do you feel about the movement to take Aunt Jemima out of the grocery store and Uncle Ben off of the package and Miss Butterworth, which I really don't understand that one. And that's my ignorance of not knowing who Miss Butterworth is. I thought she was just a syrup lady.
Yeah, me too.
I thought the color was syrup. But how do you feel about them removing these individuals?
Well, I talked to my mom about it.
I'll say personally, when I was a little kid, I wanted to see the black faces in the grocery store. Like, oh, you know, there goes some black, there goes some black people. I'm getting Miss Butterworth, or I'm getting Uncle Ben. It made me happy. So how do you feel about that?
Well, I talked to my mom about it when all of it started happening. And they changed the Aunt Jemima, actually, they changed the image of her. And the image that we see, actually, I got some in the cabinet. The image that we know and we see now was not the original image. And the original image was pretty much a mammy. Pretty much a slave woman, a servant woman. And my mom said they used to have games, Aunt Your Mama, something like that, and they, games like that. But we're used to it. We're used to it. That's what we know. You and I know it as, hey, she's the syrup lady. And it's fine. But at the same time, I understand it being removed because of what it meant originally. The original reason why it's there, it's a part of America's original sin.
Right.
And,
but are you comfortable with taking the child into the grocery store and the only blackface they see on the wrap chip bags? Is that better because we put it there?
That's extremely debatable. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I like that we're on the wrap snacks, wrap chips.
Right.
Like that, those, it's cool because, that's popular. But at the same time, one could look at it and say, well, that's the same thing as Aunt Your Mama. You're exploiting the African-American way of life and such. But it just depends on the eye of the beholder and I'm talking about in our community. It's weird, man, because you understand it, but you're used to it, but you want it to be different. So it's hard to look at it, man. It's really hard for me to say, oh, you should take that down, but I'm used to it. But the systematic racism involved in it should be destroyed. So it's like, I don't know, and it's just, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how I feel about it for real, because it doesn't bother me. But when you learn about it, it kind of bothers you. But, like you said, I don't know, man. How do you feel about it? Because I have a hard time just trying to grasp taking something that I'm used to down, but I'm not going to be sad that it's gone. But at the same time, I understand why. So tell me how you feel about it.
Well, the reality for me is that there are some mixed feelings about a lot of these things. It's like the N-word, for example.
Yeah.
We've been using it our whole youth. And then at certain points, people come and say, you can't use that anymore. But it was a comfort for us. It was good for us. We used it. I loved Dukes of Hazzard when I was a little kid.
We all did.
Right. My parents got me a Dukes of Hazzard race car set. And knowing we all don't like the Confederate flag, like we're not about that. And so there's some conflicts there that the young people don't have because they didn't grow up with some of these things. Some of these things weren't established in their life. And so whereas we have an emotional attachment to some things that may have looked bad, but we used for good, other people can easily dismiss them.
Yeah, man.
Dukes of Hazzard off of Netflix. I think that is, it doesn't make sense to me in the sense of if you watch Dukes of Hazzard and they had episodes where they talked about racial equality and things such as that. But you're taking it off just because of the sign there. There's some conflict there with me. Taking the people out of the grocery store, who do we have? Unless you have a replacement, and I know there's probably a lot of faces in the grocery store, but unless you have a replacement, that's one problem. But the other one is, are certain people ashamed of who we are and who we were? Like, why are you offended to see someone in slave clothes? That doesn't offend me. I'm proud of them. I'm proud of them because they are me. I am proud of where they came through. And so I think some people sometimes, if you see someone who was a slave or you see something from back in the day, you get offended. Whereas, are you ashamed? I'm proud. And so I don't get offended of seeing that. So it's a little conflict for me. I don't know the right answer. Like you say, if people want to take it down, I'm not going to cry about it. It's a bag of rice or it's a bag of pancakes and things like that. But I do want to make sure that you're not taking it down because you're ashamed of what happened. I do find comfort in some of the things that I had from a childhood that got us through that maybe I shouldn't have been proud of Aunt Jemima, but I was. I wanted that one. If you brought some pancakes in here, I wanted to see Aunt Jemima because she black.
That's what we grew up on. That's like, hey, pancake time. And it was always Aunt Jemima that had it. So if it was somebody else, it's like, hey, I don't want that. I don't want that. But, and it's, it goes back to, I just thought about this, the Land O'Lakes butter.
Yeah.
They took the Native American image off of that, or they're talking about doing that.
Right.
So it goes back to that, the whole Redskins logo.
Mm-hmm.
So, and sometimes it might be, people might think it's overkill. Sometimes it actually might need to be removed. That's why it's it's a sensitive subject, but at the same time, you have people that are in the middle and really won't be upset about it. Like, how, maybe you should ask a Native American how they feel about the Redskins logo. You should ask them how they feel about the Land O'Lakes, just like, people asking us about Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben. We know where we came from. They know where they came from. And we're, a person has to be secure in themselves. Like you said, you're proud. I'm proud of, where our ancestors came from. We're standing, they raised us up. So, it depends on the sensitivity level, I think, as well. And, this society is sometimes overly sensitive about all kinds of things. So, I get it. I get it. So I hear what you're saying. I get it. And I'm right there with you. You paused. You want to wait for a second. You there?
Yeah.
Okay, you paused. I didn't know what happened.
So we have some comments about the Rap Chips. Like, for example, Rap Chips is black owned.
Nice.
Does that make a difference? Or Rap Snacks, since that's what they were called. That's a good point. One of the things about the other products is that they're not black owned. But our time is moving along. So I'm gonna ask one last question that we're really gonna get into it. Religion. Mm-hmm. And because you're a history guy and you've seen in the past, you look at a Malcolm X, Islam was out front in civil rights. You look at a Martin Luther King, you look at a Representative John Lewis, you look at Al Sharpton, you can go down the list, but you had the church, you had religion out front in these movements. Mm-hmm. So my question is, with this movement, have you seen the church? And more specifically the black church, because I know that there's been some non-black churches handing out water during the protest and handing out snacks during the protest. We know of the one in DC that got moved, and I know of some here in Richmond who did the same thing where they were handing out snacks and water. But have you seen the black church out? And if you haven't, where should the black church be and what should the black church be doing to support this movement?
Now, when you say, do you see the black church, do you mean within the protesting and things like that, or just being a vocal presence?
However you see him. Do you see him out in the protest? Do you see him in the background? Do you see him being vocal? What have you seen from the church so far? And what should they be doing? Yeah, and you know what? The church should be continuing to do what they are mandated to do. Deliver the gospel of Jesus Christ. And pretty much, if a pastor or a church is participating in the protest peacefully and they're showing the world what's wrong, they're doing what they're supposed to do. But a lot of people would say, especially in social media, where's the black church during the protest? Why aren't they marching? First of all, I want the people to understand we are in a global pandemic. I don't understand. People forgot that, and you know what frustrated me? And if you think about it, a lot of spikes happened after the George Floyd protest. A lot of spikes, the virus, the number went up of confirmed cases. And, shame on those people that didn't have their mask and weren't protecting themselves. But all the people that did, they knew what they knew they were going out in that. And so I really can't fault the church or any religious group for not being out there because they want to be safe. But
they still have the pulpit. They still have the pulpit. So what's being said there? I can only speak for who I know and where I've been. And I know in the church that I attend here, my pastor speaks on it, and he pretty much is, saying a lot that other people should be saying. Justice is needed, change is needed, but at the same time, we need to do it with love, just like our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ would do. And and a lot of people are pointing their fingers, and social media. Everybody's a tough guy behind their computer for some reason. Everybody ends up being a gangster behind their computer. They say things that they will never do, and they scream and yell at people with exclamation marks and quotations that they would never say out loud. And that's one thing I hate about social media, because it just gives it makes a lot of people tough that aren't. So, and they say they're telling pastors should do this, churches should do that. Well, first of all, are they going to church? Let's ask that question. Are they spiritual? Do they know God? Do they know the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? So, if you're just being a complainer, you're pointing the finger and telling a church what to do and where to do it, you're not really helping. I know my church, we have this thing called the Barnabas Fund, the Park Baptist Church here in Charlotte, the Park Church. It's called the Barnabas Fund, and we give money to the people, the families of that are members that lost their jobs during this pandemic, and we help them out. And you actually know where the money's going. You see where the money's going. You have testimonials, and it's not just for the members. We go out in the community and do things like that. So that's what the church should be doing: helping, providing, guiding, not telling people what to do and where to do, but guiding them on what they should do and what's in the Bible, what Jesus says. So that's my stance on it. That's my take, man. I hope I said it right. I don't know, but
I think you hit it on the head there with, different people have different ideas of what the church should be doing. But one of the things I think that you're saying here is that the church, at the end of the day, is going to be the example and show you what it means to be socially just, what it means to be a good person, what it means to care about your neighbor. So we're the example, the light.
Yep. There you go.
Well, our time is gone. It's gone pretty quickly. I appreciate the fact that you joined us today.
Yeah.
Welcome back in time. Thank you.
No problem.
And so this is Impact 2020. Thank you, everybody who joined us, and we will see you next week.